because there's no wires. Europeans did not discover the land we now occupy. It was inhabited for thousands of years prior to their arrival. Among the indigenous tribal nations that lived here in Connecticut, 5 are still officially recognized. Our congregations occupy the ancestral and contemporary lands of these nations. We begin our service each week by acknowledging these facts and commit to educating ourselves while affirming the sovereignty, history, and experience of our neighbors.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak, her sap doth run in my veins, boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain. Where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end. My sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of all that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sand. Bringing my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
Can I check the sound?
Oh yeah,
Just a
absolutely. Check what we gotta check.
second?
All right.
That's too loud? Well done.
That's the best prelude I've ever heard. So should we wait a minute to try and get the speaker? Or should we just... Okay, so we'll just get going then. All right. So
We might have power to Sarah got the key.
oh, great.
We're just gonna switch from word that we wait for it to this.
Sarah got the code to open.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome on this joyous occasion that we are here together in body, mind, soul, heart, and love. My name is Lynn Grobsky, and I'm the ministerial intern here at Mattituck Unitarian Universalist Society. I want to welcome visitors, members of the Mattituck Unitarian Universalist Society, members of the Meriden, members of the Meriden Church of Unitarian Universalism. Thank you. It is such a gift and a blessing to be here in person. It's been such a long winter, hasn't it? That alone is a reason to celebrate. But we are also today welcoming new members to the congregation. So we have much to celebrate and be thankful for here this morning. We are continuing with our theme of story, and today we share inspiring stories from our Unitarian Universalist history that serve to strengthen our faith.
We gather this morning on land that was the home of the Potatuck tribe, an Algonquin-speaking people who inhabited this area before, during, and after European colonization. Due to dramatically decreased numbers from epidemics and wars with the Europeans, they united with similar decimated groups, forming the Shogtacoke tribe. Between the 1900 Connecticut tried to dismantle this group's reservation and disperse its people. The U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs granted them federal recognition in 2004, only to rescind it a year later. As Unitarian Universalists, we are in the early stages of truly dismantling what is called white supremacy culture in our association. And we have come a long way since Unitarians were among the founders and supporters of an 18th century organization out of Boston called the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel to the Indians and Other Heathens. Oh, inglorious stops on the timeline of Unitarian Indigenous relations include Unitarians and their ministers being given control of American Indian reservations, of being chartered to run boarding schools where Indigenous children were civilized. We don't have a glorious history, just like a lot of other folks, in terms of our relationship with the indigenous people and cultures of this land. But we have been trying to make amends for a long time now. In the 70s, our General Assembly nationally passed a resolution condemning the Pine Rock Reservation attacks. We've passed resolutions supporting various tribes and projects. Native Indigenous speakers have been our featured Ware lecturer at our General Assembly. And many Unitarian Universalists, including many of my minister colleagues, were very important parts of the group that went to Standing Rock to protest the destruction of the water supply there. So we continue to call on local congregations to establish relationships with Native groups in their area and work on a land acknowledgement such as this. Because today's service is stories of faith, we thought we'd make the land acknowledgement a little bit of a story also. And so we offer this land as both a recognition of the Potatuck and Shogtacoke people and a reminder to ourselves that we are just beginning the work of how to be just and compassionate neighbors and make amends for our forebearers in this faith.
I'd like to share with you the history of our chalice, the most important symbol of our faith. Back in 1941, at the height of World War II, Europe was in war.
Lynn,
Yes.
you're behind the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Once you learn to do TV, you have to remember you're gonna mark the floor like we're on stage, right?
So anyway, there was gunfire all over Europe, and refugees were streaming out of France. There were some Unitarians in America who were concerned about the plight of the refugees because there was horrible suffering. And so they formed the Unitarian Service Committee. And the committee sent members over to Lisbon to help the refugees. But when they got there, they found that there were so many refugees from so many different countries, they didn't know how to organize or to reach who to help. And so Dr. Charles Joy, who was chairperson of the committee, decided that we needed a symbol, something that would be recognized by everyone, officials, refugees, people, everywhere. And so he met Hans Deutsch, and Hans Deutsch was an artist and a refugee, not once, but twice. Hans grew up in Austria and fled to France when the Nazis invaded Austria. And then when the Nazis invaded France, he went to Lisbon. And so Dr. Joy told him to draw a symbol that would be recognized by everyone and that would represent the work of the Unitarians, which is to help and to serve. And so he drew the chalice with one circle around it as a circle of protection and love. And the symbol came to be recognized by everyone as an important symbol of freedom and hope during World War II.
Sunday school classes and youth groups began lighting a chalice to mark the openings of their classes and gatherings. And on Christmas Eve, 1965, at the West Shore Unitarian Congregation in Cleveland, Ohio, the youth group leading that night's service lit the chalice in the congregation's worship service for the first time. And this is generally recognized as the first time we began lighting the chalice as a ritual symbol opening our services. This morning, we welcome new members, Michelle Young and her daughter, Gracie. And Michelle's going to come up and light the chalice for us this morning. Thanks, Michelle.
Sure.
And if the wind blows that out, Michelle, it has nothing to do with your future in Unitarian Universalist. Just pure fate and chance. May this flame inspire us to courageously and authentically live out our own story. And may it remind us to listen to and learn about the stories of others. In the shadow here, so I'm going to adjust our camera a little bit. There we go. All right. This will now be a new volunteer position in many congregations after COVID, camera person. So about a year ago, I told part of this story, but I want to tell it again because we're doing stories of faith today. Phoebe and Nika were girls, about 8 years old, and they heard about a lot of bad things going on in the world around them and wanted to do something but weren't sure what to do. So they brought it up to their religious education classes and their congregation at the North Universalist Chapel in Vermont. And this was the beginning of an organization called Change the World Kids. And it is a group of children who work together to protect many parts of the environment. And when they learn about problems in the world, they think of ways they can act to make a difference. And what they learn is even children can do a lot to help make a change and make a difference. Their motto is No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. They believe this, and I do too, that when one person takes action, even in one small way, that action sends ripples out like ripples in a lake when a stone is thrown in. In Vermont, where the girls lived, many people had bird feeders in their backyard, and they attracted songbirds. And when Vermont got cold, as it does there, if you know about Vermont, the birds would go south. And one springtime, children started to notice the birds really weren't coming back. And so they wanted to know why. And they learned that some were endangered species and might become extinct due to losing the forestation and habitat areas of where they spent the winters in Central America. And so people in Costa Rica, where many of these birds would migrate to, were building homes, clearing land, destroying habitat. And so what the children in Vermont did is they raised money, they planted forests, created habitat, helped people purchase land, and helped create a place where the birds could go. Since places were being destroyed, they created new places for them to be. So maybe they couldn't do everything, but they did something. One time, after they had created the sanctuaries for the birds, they went down and tagged them with scientists to keep track and learn more about them. Now, the girls who started, Nika and Phoebe, grew older, and new children joined the group and took over the leadership. And this group still works, they still exist, and they are open to children from all over the world and all different faith traditions. But this group was started by two Unitarian Universalist children who wanted to make a difference, put their faith into action. And it is amazing how big, how strong, how important, and how powerful your individual drive to be of help, to create positive change can be. These two young ladies started a group that first consisted of their youth group and now involves young people from all over the world who have done amazing work in many places. This is a story of our faith that can inspire all of us, no matter what age we are. We're all asked to do the same.
This morning, we welcome a new member of the Mattituck Unitarian Universalist Society, Michelle Young, along with her daughter Gracie. Michelle has completed our online new member class, and she has made promises to walk together with us in a spirit of love and service, dedicating her particular to our shared missional ministry. Michelle and her daughter have been attending congregational services online for a while and recently got in touch and asked to join the congregation. Do you come here of your own free will and consent to participate in this ceremony and with this congregation?
I do.
Do you promise to walk together with us in a spirit of love and service? And do you promise to dedicate your own particular gifts and ministry to our mission of human spirit in order to bring love and justice to transform ourselves and our world?
I do.
As president of Moose, I welcome you on behalf of our entire congregation. I promise that I, along with our leaders and all our members, will reach out to you and Gracie to include you in our shared ministry. We're glad you're both here. You've decided to join us in covenant. Therefore, we invite you to formally sign your name in the membership book to signify and record for any who may question it that you consider yourself to be a member of our congregation.
It's done. Oh, thank you. Michelle and Gracie, on behalf of our membership, I welcome you to Moose. And as a little token of our appreciation and welcoming, I'm going to give you a copy of the Unitarian Universalist Pocket Guide. Thank you. And this is for you, Gracie, because I took it. Oh, thank you so much. Welcome.
Michelle and Gracie, joining our covenanted community is only one step on a lifelong journey of learning and spiritual growth. Ours is a shared missional ministry. Each of us has a crucial role to play. We need you. We need your energy. We need your ideas. We need your hope, and we need your inspiration. I charge you to grow in your Unitarian Universalist faith. More importantly, I charge you to find and share your special gifts with this church and with the world.
Some story that illustrates how our partnership with Meriden works and how sharing one's gifts work. So Michelle is a hairstylist, and I got an email from folks in Meriden who were working with the Center for Women and Children there to get supplies and do other things for them. And I had just visited with Michelle at her house and learned this, and she was talking about some ways to share that skill and help the community. So I thought, I will pass this along. So I passed the contact along, and now Michelle is going to be volunteering to give free haircuts to the women and children at the center. And that's how this whole thing works. That's just truly amazing. Thank you. Michelle was acting like one of our members before she was even a member. Really? That's how we share our gifts. So normally what I would do is I would do a laying on of hands. Because in our tradition, we believe everyone is a priest and prophet, right? Everyone's a minister. And so like ministers get ordained, I think every member should in a sense be ordained, right? To be commissioned to do all these good things in the world and hold up our values. So instead of having everyone come up and lay hands on your shoulder and then, if they can't reach you, they'll touch somebody else. we're just breaking out of quarantine, so we're not going to do all that. But what I'd like everybody to do is, Denise, if you could lay a hand on Michelle's shoulder, if that's okay, and Lynn on the other shoulder. And the rest of you could raise a hand or two if you feel like you're being a Nazi and that's the opposite of what we do. You can do 2 hands.
2 hands looks way better.
Yeah. I welcome you to our covenanted community with a blessing of the laying on of welcoming hands. The laying on of hands is an ancient form of blessing and healing. In the congregational tradition, we believe every member of our community is a priest and a prophet. We are a priesthood and prophethood of every member. So just as ministers are ordained, we want to ordain you to our membership. So we want you to know that all the members of our congregation are going to be your helping hands on your spiritual journey. And we reach out to you and support you in Gracie in any way you might need in all the ways we are able. So I offer this blessing from all of us. These hands that welcome you are Unitarian and Universalist hands. These hands are the hands of members and friends and visitors and seekers and family. These are the Mattituck Unitarian Universalist Society. These hands make real our presence in the world. These hands work hard, they raise children, they play, they mold, they cook, they build, they manage projects, they hold loved ones close, and now they hold you in Gracie. The members of our congregation say to you, welcome. We are yours and you are ours. This community, these people, are home and family. Rest easy here. Be at peace. Know love better so that you may transform your life and be a creator of beloved community in the world around you. May all of us, partners in a wonderful ministry, be blessings always to one another. Amen. Amen. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much.
So, I would like you all to take a little extra minute and give Michelle and Gracie a big applause and a big cheer. Oh, I'm sorry. You must have thought I said a small applause and a small cheer. Big applause and a big cheer. There we go. So one of my mentors in ministry was the Reverend Dr. Mary Harrington. She was diagnosed with ALS in 2006 when she was the minister at the Winchester Unitarian Universalist Society in Winchester, Massachusetts, not far outside Boston. She was a member of the Greenfield Group, a minister's professional development group to which I belong and to which I had kind of just joined. And met Mary, and only knew her a short while before she knew she had ALS. If some of you are GA attenders, Reverend Mary preached the Sermon of the Living Tradition at General Assembly in 2009 from her wheelchair. I'm going to get all choked up talking about Mary. So Mary died in 2010. She was 58. But this is not a sad story about her disease and death and dying. This is a story about the power of living out one's life of faith in the work you do and being an example to others. She was a person who truly put her faith into action, much like the Change the World kids. When Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast in August 2005, like many of us, Mary watched in horror on TV and the internet, getting more outraged as less and less seemed to be being done to help. So Mary and her congregation started a nonprofit called Gulf Coast Volunteers for the Long Haul. Mary said she went out of her mind with rage watching the news. And she had to find a way to help. And that's how she and the congregation formed their nonprofit. And Gulf Coast Volunteers for the Long Haul began organizing to send groups and teams of volunteers to New Orleans and surrounding areas to help. Not to tell people what to do, not to bring what they thought was needed, but to go make relationships, learn what was needed, and do what was asked of them. By the time Mary preached at General Assembly in 2009, she had organized 16 volunteer trips with 189 volunteers, including 108 UUs from over 20 UU congregations. And that was just by 2009. This was the long haul, so this went on years after. By the time the organization had run its course, they had sent hundreds and hundreds of volunteers and involved dozens of UU congregations in the effort. And they even created a nonprofit on the ground in New Orleans called the Center for Ethical Living and Social Justice Renewal. And part of that group's mission was to house and feed the volunteers Gulf Coast brought down, so they wouldn't be a burden on the people there to have to find places for them to stay and feed. So it was just before her second trip in 2006 that Mary was diagnosed with her ALS. She ended up, all in all, leading 14 of the many trips herself, all but 3 of them from her wheelchair. She said, "What stands out for me about that trip in 2006 was how much I needed a meaningful, powerful distraction, something big and compelling enough to take my mind off my bad news, at least a little bit. And in a strange way, the storm gave me that, a kind of refuge in the storm rather than from the storm. My little joke to myself was, now I understand why they call this relief work, because it was such a relief to go somewhere else and focus on other people's problems, not just my own." Mary was fond of quoting the physician Rachel Naomi Remen, who writes, "True service is not a relationship between an expert and a problem. It's more genuine than that. It's a relationship between people who bring the full resources of their humanity to the table and share generously. Service goes beyond expertise. Service is the way the world can heal." So Mary's legacy of service lives on in the overwhelming positive and substantial work of the Gulf Coast Volunteers for the Long Haul, and also in her son, Sam Title, who is now the minister of our UU Church in Memphis, Tennessee, and to whom I have served as a mentor. Service is the way the world heals, and the values we pass on generation to generation as a religion of deeds, not creeds.
Martha and Waitstill Sharp were heroes. Waitstill was the minister at the Wesley Church of the Unitarian Church in Wesley, Massachusetts. And they were hearing all of the horrible stories of the refugees and their suffering. And they were passionate about helping. So they joined the newly formed Unitarian Service Committee and went to Lisbon, Portugal. And at this point, the Nazis had invaded France, and thousands and millions of refugees were pouring into Lisbon. And she wrote that the city was choked with refugees of all nationalities. And she wrote that the worst conditions were in the internment camps for the foreigners. They slept on straw mattresses. They were in barracks that had no windows, no heat, in freezing weather. Debilitating diseases such as typhus, typhoid, dysentery, hair falling out, teeth loose, all brought on by unsanitary, crowded conditions. What made the suffering even worse was that there was nothing to do. No paper, no pens or pencils, no milk for the children. It was horrible. And so they came up with a plan, and they ended up rescuing hundreds of refugees, a lot of them Jewish children. They were able to circumvent the restrictions on Jewish immigrants that were imposed both in Europe and in America. And so because of heroes like the Sharps, I am proud to be a Unitarian Universalist.
Is anybody familiar with the musical Carousel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so many people here know that, right? So John Green, one of my favorite authors, just released a new book called The Anthropocene Reviewed, where he just talks about a whole bunch of various different stuff from the age of humans, the Anthropocene. And at the end, he gives it a 5 out of 5 star rating, you know, like Penguins, 3.5 out of 5 stars, right? It's great. I highly recommend it. But one of the things he talks about is Hungarian playwright Ferenc Molnár, who debuted the play called Liliom in Budapest in 1909. It bombed. He continued to have faith in it and staged it all over Europe. Finally, after bringing it to the United States in 1921, it finally got some fairly positive reviews and made moderate income for him. The story is about a carousel barker named Liliom who falls in love with a woman named Julie. She gets pregnant, and he starts doing crime to help support the family, and he gets caught and killed. And he's in purgatory for 16 years and gets to come back and visit his daughter, who is now 16 years old. So, not having much of a success with that, he was thrilled when he finally got a little notoriety. Having a little notoriety caused the composer Giacomo Puccini to want to pay him for the rights to turn this into an opera. He declined because he wanted Liliom to be remembered as a play by Molnár, not an opera by Puccini. Ah, that problematic ego. Eventually, some years later, desperate for the income, he sold the rights to the play to be made into a Broadway musical. And now, I'm sure virtually none of you had heard of the play Liliom, right? But I bet a lot of you, as you have told me, know the musical Carousel by Rodgers and Hammerstein. Ah, karma. John tells this story in his book because he loves one of the songs, You'll Never Walk Alone, from the musical. And he says, the lyrics are, well, they're not all that sophisticated. Walk on through the wind and the rain, walk on with hope in your heart. Almost trite. But this song has been covered by Johnny Cash and Sinatra and Aretha. And Jerry and the Pacemakers had a top hit with it in the 1960s. Eventually, the song became the famous chant for the Liverpool Football Club in the English Premier League. Right? He probably should have sold it to Puccini. But what John Green says he likes about the song is that phrase, walk on. And even though he finds it corny, he finds it true. And I can't agree more. He says the words just convey two important facts about being human. Every day you get up and choose to get up, which we do every day, you have no choice but to somehow go on. And the reality is that no matter how isolated you've been, how quarantined you've been, how lonely you've been, how out of touch you've felt, at no time were you ever alone. None of us goes on alone. Even in isolation and quarantine, feeling so removed from everyone and everything, all of us are here with each other. Green notes in his essay that in the early days of COVID in March 2020, medical workers in England stood on one side of a glass wall and sung this song, You'll Never Walk Alone, to their colleagues who were fallen sick and were dying of COVID on the other side of the glass. And reading this essay in his book this week reminded me of this is exactly what being a member of a congregation is about. That we have no choice but to go on. And having no choice but to go on, we don't go on alone. We have each other. And also this week, I heard a brilliant story that illustrated this from a couple of our members, and Julie's going to tell that story too, because it involves Julie.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie. I hope you can hear me in the back row. Okay. I do have a little bit of a story. I actually have two stories to tell, and I didn't tell Tony. I'm a UU. My mind wanders from story to story. It might happen to you also, but I'm going to go with the one that Tony is referencing right now. So in the reflection of this past year, I've had the blessing of being part of this UU community, and I dropped in to rescue a fellow Moose UU mom as she sent out an SOS on Facebook. It's not emotional, I just get that way. With one Facebook post, she reached out and received the typical Facebook opinions, speculations on the value of a textbook. Really now, folks? Open the books, guys. So with one call, I rummaged through my storage and I called the right resource, Denise, and we were able to tutor. And we can now proudly say we created a math scholar. Is that not correct?
It's pretty close.
It's pretty close. I just want to see everyone loving math, okay? Now, the second story involves this skirt that is kind of like a teacher's skirt. It's got lots of pockets. I've never been a teacher, but I thought this was a good use of this skirt. When Tony and I started talking about this service, I wanted to bring forth Indigenous stories. And I started researching this because the UUA last year had an extreme initiative to help the Wampanoag Mashpees who were, their land was threatened to be taken away by the federal government by, Mr. And the UU stood up and said, no, this cannot happen. And, bring your lawyers, not your guns, bring your lawyers, and you can come. And we were able to turn around, I would say the UUs were able to turn this around, and the Mashpees and Wampanoags did not lose their land. This is relevant to me. I grew up in a town called Seekonk. If you know any Wampanoag, you know that Seekonk stands for Black Goose. And it's the only Wampanoag I know. So I went on the website for the UUA, and as a UU, I kept going deeper and deeper, and I found a museum in Exeter, Rhode Island. Has anybody been to the Tamaquag Museum? The oldest indigenous museum in the United States is located in Exeter, Rhode Island. And as I researched and read stories, they have a wonderful blog. And there's a blog about the story of the Strawberry Thanksgiving. I'm going to encourage you all to go on these websites for our Native American museums. They're not open right now because of COVID. They will probably be opening. Here comes out of the pocket a list. We have the Institute for the American Indian Studies in Washington. We've probably been there. The Tamaquag Museum in Exeter, where they have a wonderful blog and great stories to read. The Mashantucket Pequot Museum in Mashantucket, Connecticut. And the Wampanoag in Mashpee, Massachusetts. Hopefully they'll all be opening. If you would like a list of the websites, I have printed them out. That's all I have for the wandering UU mind. Thank you.
Thank you. As my colleague, the Reverend Teresa Soto writes, and I love this, all of us need all of us to make it. This year we've lost George Roberts, Steve Barnes, Becky Skinner's husband Joseph, Adele Taylor. We've lost a lot of freedom. We've lost a lot of feeling connected. We've lost so much. And yet through this all, we went on. And we went on with each other as best we possibly could. We welcome Michelle and Gracie today. And I remind you and all of us, I've said over and over this past year, since the pandemic started, we will go on the only way we can, together. Please join us in spirit of life. I'd like you to join me in a litany of meditation, and your response is, "We are Matatuck UU." Give that a shot.
We are Matatuck UU.
It sounds like you're not very proud of that fact. We are Matatuck UU.
We are Matatuck UU.
That's the Matatuck UU I know. We are all those who, for medical reasons, cannot get vaccinated.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are all those who thankfully have been vaccinated.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are a single person living alone who's lived with an added level of isolation.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are parents who have struggled through pandemic and whose children may yet not be vaccinated.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are empty nesters longing for more companionship.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are teens not old enough to be vaccinated.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are people living in care facilities and nursing homes who want visitors.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are the ones who want to be able to sing together again.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are members of small group ministries and other teams and committees longing to reunite and work face to face and in person.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are also the immunocompromised.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are those who have lost husbands and wives, partners, fathers, mothers, siblings, friends, and co-workers.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are George Roberts and Steve Barnes and Joseph Wassong and Adele Taylor.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are white people who know all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are Unitarian Universalists of many spiritual traditions who know Israel as well as Hamas have committed human rights violations.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are community seeking a meeting house and a home who seek fair housing and housing for the homeless.
We are Matatuck UU.
We are people of many paths that traveled together and go on together as one community.
We are blessed of you.
We are also a people that share the joy and pain in their hearts with each other. Yay. And so I'm going to invite you, as you feel so moved, to actually come and physically and in person share joys and concerns. Yeah. We actually have candles. They should stay lit. There's a little switch on the bottom, and if you flip it to the other side, the light will go on. And you can sand. So place it gently so we can get the sand tapped out of the bottom when we're done. So I invite you now, as you are so moved, to come up, face the congregation, share what's in your heart, light your candle, and go back to your seat. Since we're not using this, I'm going to get this cord out of the way. If you'd like to share but don't want to or have trouble getting up, raise your hand. I'll come either get your joy and concern to repeat and or light your candle for you.
Hi, I'm Trish Stewart, and my great joy is that such a wonderful community. I am terrible at asking for help, and when I put on Facebook that I was losing my mind, people just from the goodness of their heart gave to me and my sons. And I am incredibly proud, as everyone knows, of both of my boys. But my oldest son, Harper, who couldn't be here today, he's going to be inducted into the Waterbury Arts Magnet School National Junior Honor Society, and that definitely wouldn't have happened if he'd failed math. So I'm so thankful to the community that I found here. But additionally, I'm so thankful that when I shared that on social media, that outpouring of love that he received.
My name is Judith Francis, and I'm grateful for our congregation, especially the leadership who kept things going the past year and rose way above all kinds of weird conditions. I'm also glad that my friend Donna Hayes could join us today. She's a good friend. I hope you'll say hi. I'll let her introduce herself more.
Hi, I'm Mary Lander, and I thought you all would like to know about my sister's UU church in Wausau, Wisconsin. It was very badly vandalized last week to the point where they can't use it for the foreseeable future. And today was scheduled to be their baccalaureate service, and they have to honor youngsters in the congregation who are graduating, one of whom is my niece, Danica. And the Methodist Church down the street offered their space for that service, and I guess for other services this summer. So please keep them in your thoughts.
To bless Adele on her journey.
I've told some of you this, but I did get to visit Adele when she went to the hospital with the stroke. And I used to be a hospice chaplain. And between that and ministry, I've been in a lot of hospital rooms, and I've been with a fair number of people as they passed. Rarely have I felt such a peaceful and powerful room with someone ill. And I think many of you would tell me, yup, that's it.
confusion. On March 29th, I had my lower right lobe of my lung removed. That's why I'm compromised. And I'm doing really well. Have some time to go. But people here have been really nice, and I really appreciate everything they've done.
Michelle Young, again. Thank you for the super warm welcome, and I'm going to be confused a lot, as you found already. So thank you for putting up with my confusion. It's a little hard to get acclimated online, but all of you have been really wonderful. And if you could keep my brother-in-law Robbie in your thoughts, he was diagnosed with MS this past week.
Just a quick celebration. We have two nieces who are graduating high school this week. One in Colorado in Boulder and the other in South Portland, Maine. Eliza and Val. Very excited about that. And a quick note about Adele. Very important to our family. My mother and my brother still live in the home that the Taylors built, their first home. And so all these years, we've really had them right around.
Oh, that's a long walk. I'm John Cummings. Today at 2 o'clock at Playhouse Corner, UUs and other like-minded people are commemorating 52 weeks of demonstrations after the death of George Floyd.
And today will mark also 1 year people have been there every single Sunday. It's a powerful witness.
So not only a year today, but next Sunday we will have a celebration of sorts. Not a celebration for happy, but for honoring that have shown up almost every week. But I'd also like to give a special thanks to Reverend Tony and Tuesday, who is not here, his wife, for being the only clergy who have attended for the most part. There are a couple who have come and gone, but Tony has been there almost every week in one way or another, and his spirit is there even if he's not, and that's something that we should, as a congregation, feel really good about, that we are a faith that shows up and that we can, he says just the right things when he speaks there, and I think that's something to feel really great about as our congregation and as our minister. Thank you for your leadership there.
Ministers wish you'd pick any day but after church on Sunday for all your activism, seriously. But yes, I mean, it's a small quibble given all the justice involved, but boy, and that's probably one reason more of our colleagues aren't there. Not that they wouldn't want to be, I know that. And this is from my wife's grandmother. My wife was raised by her grandparents, so grandma and grandpa are also mom and dad. And her grandfather passed New Year's Eve, and her grandmother passed a couple weeks ago. So will be gone for a week and a half in Portland, Oregon, where she's from, for funerals, the beginning of June. So absolutely the worst time of year, maybe other than Christmas, for a UU minister to be out of pocket is as we come near GA at the end of the year with annual meetings and reports and everything. But that's when we've got to go. The family doubled up the funeral with 2 graduations that were also occurring, so people who had to travel could go to all of them. So I thank you for your grace. I know I'm being away at a really hard time, but I really appreciate your grace for that, and all the support and notes and emails we've gotten from so many of you supporting Tuesday. She's very grateful.
I'd like to add that Adele's celebration of life will be, I'm not sure the date, but the last week in July, more or less.
July 31st.
July 31st, thank you. More or less for the same reason that the family will all be gathering for their annual trip to Block Island. So, July 31st.
Likewise, there's a visitation for Becky's husband's tomorrow evening, and the Mass of Christian burial is Tuesday morning. If anybody wants more details, I have it.
Any other joys and concerns? So for all these concerns, for all those who live with disease and illness, be it visible or invisible, for everything in our hearts we cannot put into words or find difficult to share, we offer all this up, these truths of our lives, to everything glorious and good and kind and compassionate and courageous, believing there truly is a love that holds us all. So we had an announcement that, about Becky Skinner's husband, Joseph. You've given that, so we had that for you. We're going to have the RE is going to be doing some painting after we're finished, right? All right. And we have not passed a collection plate, but there is a collection basket here for your offerings, donations, and, as Margaret will explain, for our Share the Plate.
Hi, I'm Margaret Morley, and I'm a member of the Social Justice Coordinating Team. And on the first and fourth Sundays of the month, we have what we call Share the Plate Sundays, and today is the fourth Sunday of the month. Half of the collection today, aside from your regular pledges, will be shared with the Social Justice Team. So Tony asked me to look up some information about how this came to be. I don't know if I have all the information, but here's some of the information. So Share the Plate came about after Moose voted on supporting food insecurity as a congregation. And the Share the Plate idea was originally came from the UUA, and that's how we learned about it. So we decided to give it a try. And the UUA said that focusing our funds on specific areas as we focus funds on specific areas, giving increases, and so we wanted to give that a try. Their slogan was that we do not gather your gifts for ourselves, but for the world. And so we continue to share your gifts with the wider community. Your generosity makes possible contributions to our food banks, funding for our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the Greater Waterbury Interfaith Ministries, and many other contributions to social justice organizations like Black Lives Matter and Equals Initiative. This month, we will be giving to charities that support immigration and LGBTQ rights. Thank you so much, as always, for your continued generosity and support. And there's a basket here for your contribution. So thanks again.
This is the donation basket. It's marked donations, share the plate, offering in my immaculate handwriting. And next to it over here, we're gonna place a basket of goodies. So you can have one even if you don't leave a donation. But these are here for you. And if you want any of this, this is great. We have all kinds of things. We've got a book for children, fridge magnets, decals, all kinds of stuff. So please help yourself to things that advertise us. We will have a final song in a moment. We've come to the end of our service, and the wind has graciously extinguished the chalice for us. So we will carry that flame in our hearts. When we find it difficult to go on, may that flame remind us of this community and that we never go alone. We'll see everybody next week, either at the UUMeriden or online at 10:30. Go in peace, holy
Remind everyone that 4 o'clock is our annual meeting.
4 p.m. is our annual meeting. It's on Zoom, right? The link is...